President broke down in tears yesterday talking about his plan to curb gun violence, and you have said that you're going to fight him tooth and nail on it. And so I am so eager to hear what problems you have with the president's plan.
Well, you know, I think if you ask Kelly or I, how did we react to the shooting of children, it's like anybody else, horrified at that, to think that our kids could go to school and be shot. So I think whether you're on the right or the left, we all have the same sense of recoil at the horror of this. My main opposition to this is constitutional, that laws are supposed to be written by the legislature. And you say, oh, that's no big deal, the Congress won't do what they're supposed to do. Right. The problem, though, is if we allow the precedent of a Congress not passing laws and the president doing it, you might get very dangerous things, like, let's say, internment of the Japanese, or let's say spying on all the civil rights leaders, or spying on the Vietnam War protesters.
It's been done.
That's what I mean, but it's all done because of too much executive power. The checks and balances are incredibly important to me, and Montesquieu was one of the philosophers that our founding fathers looked to, and he said that when the executive begins to legislate, that a form of tyranny will ensue.
But if you were in his position, what would you do? He can't seem to get any traction. He can't get any...
He has to come to Congress. He has to come and talk to us and try to work it out, and some of it's difficult.
He hasn't done that?
Some. I mean, I've worked with him on criminal justice reform, and I've been to the White House, and I've applauded some of the things he's done with commuting sentences of people who have been put in jail forever for nonviolent crimes. Right. But with regard to this, the difficulty is background checks. I don't object to background checks. And you say, well, why don't we close the loophole of the private transactions? See, they did that in California. They closed the loophole, and it's illegal to have a private transaction. Yeah. But in San Bernardino, it still happened. Why? Because in order to police private transactions and have background checks, you would have to know where all the guns are all the time. And so what we fear is not the registration. I think you'll find this from most pro-gun people. We don't fear the background checks. We fear that you would have to register all guns in order to know to have a background check.
I just want to ask you this because I'm a gun owner. You know, I don't mind that you know that I have a gun. You can come in my house and look for it. You can get all whatever you need. I don't understand why anyone objects to getting rid of automatic weapons. Automatic weapons, they're not for hunting. They do nothing. They're only there to kill. And you'll notice that a lot of the things that have happened with automatic weapons. When we see that, why don't we say, you know, who really needs to have one other than people who are at war?
Right. Yeah, what do you say to that?
Truly automatic weapons we don't have. You know, we banned truly automatic weapons, I think, in 1934. Right,
but we still got a lot of them around. Come on now.
Well, what we have is not automatic weapons, so we have semi-automatic. So they fire in a fairly fast sequence, but you can't pull the trigger and they come like a machine gun. Those are no longer out.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying.
What it is that there's a repetitive fire. People do hunt with them, and people do also shooting and sport shooting and target shooting and things with these guns. And come to Kentucky and I'll introduce you to there are a lot of people who like and enjoy this as a sport. But the other problem is if we're going to take away ownership of specific types of guns, you really have to modify it, something that big as to either be legislation or even possibly a constitutional amendment. We can't allow one individual to do it. And here, I'll give you an example why. Let's say we had a terrible president that you didn't like from another party, and that president said, The View, oh, you should hear the things they're saying on The View. We should limit their speech. We should register the journalists, and then we should have an approval board. And you know, that's silly. We would all be opposed to that. But that's the danger of letting a president make the rules. Even if you agree with what he's doing now, you should worry about having a president have so much power to create the law without Congress doing it.
He's gone in a couple. I'm sorry, man. There's no reason anybody needs to have an automatic weapon. I'm sorry. I get everything else.
I'm sorry.